Hey, what is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show, saying you're blessed and highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. You can also catch many of my shows at thegoodmenproject.com, one of the most viewed sites in the world for men, where I am the only show that's featured on a regular basis, only online show that's featured on a regular basis. And as usual, we're doing another edition of the Sports Five with Brenden Whitted. How you doing, Brenden?
To be honest, it's been a little bit of a rough 24 hours after that Duke UNC game.
Oh,
It's a
no,
little
no.
rough.
And like, you guys had that game.
Yeah, we did. I thought so. I certainly thought so. And then, up 10 with 3 minutes left, up 7 with a minute and 30. I mean, but I knew it was going to be so difficult. I mean, you got Duke University is known for their ability to drive, kick, and knock down that three-pointer in Cameron. It was going to be a problem, and it turned out to be too big of one for us.
Well, and Okafor didn't even play that great, which is a whole other conversation. But it's interesting to see how other stars are rising on that team in his presence. So,
Absolutely. Tyus Jones had himself a game. Cook, much maligned over the course of his career, is having a great senior season and had a wonderful send-off right there in that rivalry. So, yeah, that was tough. That was a tough one. That was a tough one as well.
let's get on to more pleasant subjects because we think Dean Smith has sort of turned in his grave a little bit last night after that game. But all respects to Dean Smith, and we're doing the Sports Vibe here. We just come on half an hour or so, talk about sports stuff. And at first last night, Brenden and I were going back and forth on Twitter. We're saying NBA, NFL, NFL Combine, but we totally forgot this is NBA trade deadline, and I'm insulted because Brenden is one of my NBA go-to guys in the paint, and I had to tweet him this afternoon and say, hey, we just got to talk. Is this like, as a show would say, ball trade night in the NBA, and there's such a flurry of trades. Did you expect this?
No, I mean, over the course of the season, you hear about certain things, some guys being disgruntled, people wanting to get moved, and you saw Goran Dragic. He was the kind of the big name that was going to be out there, and that's been out there for a little while, and then especially in the last 36 hours with him publicly saying that he wasn't going to resign. But I didn't realize that all of these guys that I had heard rumors about or heard something about were going to get moved. Like that just the volume and the magnitude of it. Maybe not one name got me as so much as how many of a flurry of guys were gone. So, and I think a lot of teams helped themselves in this trade. Not necessarily past Dragic, you don't get a lot of big names moving. You're not getting, you're not getting LeBron, you're not getting Kobe, you're not getting Durant or anything like that. But you're getting teams that understand where their weaknesses are and the small tweaks that small but important tweaks that they're going to need in terms of competing, especially once you look at what the West is. So, I thought there were some real shrewd moves done by a few teams. There's some stuff I didn't like, obviously, but.
Well, we're going to get to that as we chat, and let's talk about this Goran Dragic trade. Like, how does this help Miami, in your opinion?
It gives them more, just a bigger perimeter threat. Wade is good when he plays, but he's been on this pitch count for the last few years now, so he's not playing more than 45 games or anything like that. So you need consistent perimeter help, and they just weren't getting it from their two guards in Mario Chalmers and Norris Cole. Like they just weren't getting much out of that point guard position, and you actually end up seeing them ship Norris Cole off.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they're changing, and that if you want to compare that team to last year's team, that team looks a lot different now. You got Hassan Whiteside there. Now you've added Dragic. Like this is and Luol Deng. This is a very, very different team than the one that made the finals last year. But I think that they needed the inflection of the new blood. Like this is between Whiteside and now Dragic. These are two. I don't want to say found gems for them because they ended up paying for Dragic's rights, but. They've really improved themselves in a very, very short period of time. Like it will be very, very interesting to see what they did because for a long time I thought, especially with Bosch's woes lately, I thought that team was pretty much going to be done in the first round. Now I don't think that they're a title contender. I don't think they'll come out of the East, but they have given themselves at least a puncher's chance to compete, and that's all you can really ask of anybody. Shout out to Pat Riley. He's holding it down.
So is Pat Riley building for? I have a feeling that Pat's got something up his sleeve for the future because this was a very shrewd move because I was listening to sports media outlets, and Miami was not a team that was mentioned.
They had talked a little bit about it, but I wasn't really sure what was going to happen because at the last second you actually heard Phoenix kind of capitulate and say, okay, we can get rid of Isaiah Thomas. Like one of the things that made Dragic want to leave was the fact that they had 4 point guards on that team. They had Eric Bledsoe that they just signed to big money. They had Dragic. They had Isaiah Thomas that they picked up because he's just such an asset and his rights were relatively cheap at around $7-8 million. And then they also drafted Tyler Ennis out of Syracuse. So they just had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Dragic was playing off the ball a lot and he was unhappy. And you saw them; they pretty much decided, okay, we're jettisoning all these players. They're keeping Bledsoe, but and they got Brandon Knight, but they decided to just let everything else go. And I mean, I guess you have to give them something for at least admitting that they were wrong and just trying something new.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting trade. Something tells me Pat has something up his sleeve down the road, but we'll wait and see on that. Kevin Garnett to Minnesota.
Yeah, that was surprising. I thought that maybe Kevin Garnett might get moved to a contender, that someone might want to give him a few minutes here and there, but I never thought Minnesota. I never thought, because he has a no trade clause, remember, so he had to okay this. And I would have never thought that he would want to go back there. I knew that he appreciated his time while he was in Minnesota to start off his career. But I never thought that he'd want to go back at the tail end. I thought he might want to try chase a ring.
Yeah, I'm sort of puzzled on this one because going from Brooklyn to Minnesota.
I guess that's where his heart is. I mean, I guess that's kind of his version of coming back home. That's where he started his career off. Honestly, if you think about what he's meant to the game, he's the second best power forward I've ever seen in my life. And I did get a chance to see Karl Malone, but what he did, he was 2010 and 5 assists for a really long time. He was an MVP. He was Defensive Player of the Year. He's really done everything that you can do. He just happened to be playing alongside Tim Duncan, and so all of his accomplishments got compared to him.
Right.
But I think KG he's an absolute Hall of Famer and a top 50 player all time.
Something tells me that down the road we'll see him coaching.
I could see him in some role with the team. I don't know if his volatile nature is necessarily great for everyday coaching, but maybe somewhere in an executive, I could definitely see that.
I can definitely see that. Just strange. Like I can't see more than, man. Could he do another season in Minnesota? I
mean, his numbers have been going down pretty steadily. I'm of the assumption. And this is really just an assumption, but I'm of the assumption that he understands that he's done, that this is his last season, and he would just like to, kind of go out in Minnesota. That's what I'm assuming, but maybe he has long-term plans. It's hard to believe that he would have another season in him, though. He hasn't really looked particularly good for long stretches this one.
As I think about bringing up the issue of coaching, something maybe down in their general manager or being assistant general manager in Minnesota, and they have a lot of young players there that could certainly benefit from his mentorship.
Absolutely, and I think Mason Plumlee benefited from it while he was at the Nets. You saw him all the time. Always, KG was always in his ear, and I think it helped relax him. I think it helped him find what he did well and kind of find his niche on that team. So he definitely has the ability to convey all of that knowledge that he's accrued over his multi-year career.
All right, let's take a look at another one. Brandon Knight goes to Phoenix, while Milwaukee gets Michael Carter-Williams, Miles Plumlee, and Tyler Ennis.
So
Philadelphia gets draft picks. So what up with this one?
There's a couple things up with this one. The first thing that really hurt me was that Milwaukee has been one of the cooler stories out of the NBA. They're in playoff contention, and no one had that. No one at all. And if the Hawks weren't playing at such a rapid pace, I think that you would hear more Jason Kidd for Coach of the Year type of thing. Like it was very weird with the Nets. He was there, and then he just wasn't, and then he was with Milwaukee, and so and you looked at the roster, and there wasn't anything that blew you away. Sure, they were going to get Jabari Parker, but honestly, it looked like a team that was still a couple years away from being serious. And all of a sudden, they made a run, but now because of this CBA that they have, it's just too punitive for them to pay over the luxury tax, and now they have to give away Brandon Knight, not give away, but trade Brandon Knight, who was an all-star caliber player. So that's really what hurt me. That's the first thing that I took away from this. You also have Brandon Knight going to the Phoenix, and yes, that means that they've completely given up and they're just going to rebuild. It sucks that Phoenix had found kind of this lightning in a jar last year, and they were kind of the darlings. They weren't able to make the playoffs, but it looked like they had something brewing, and it seemed like they've kind of ruined all that good chemistry and good faith all together. So that was also a little bit of an acknowledgement of that's just unfortunate. And the last part about it that I really didn't like was the 76ers. It seems like every time that they have an opportunity to maybe build and start really doing something, they go ahead and give away Michael Carter. They trade away Michael Carter Williams. That was their best player, and they're trading him away essentially in order to get a pick down the road. But eventually, when does this stop? Like, you can't continue to just stockpile assets. That's not a thing. That's not a product that you can put out on the court.
Yeah, I can't believe like how much they're sort of. Do they ever plan to win?
Their plan has always been to be really, really bad and to just get enough assets so that they can get good either through the draft or through trades with all the things that they'll be able to accrue. But at some point, if you're just bad year after year after year, I just don't. There's nothing in the NBA's history that lets me think that that's going to work as a way to get better. Like, no team has ever been bad for several years, accrued a whole bunch of young first rounder talent, and had them all grow, and all of a sudden they're great. That's not how it goes in the NBA. You have to make trades. You have to have people in free agency that want to come to your place. Who's going to want to come to Philadelphia? I mean, they traded away KJ McDaniels, who was one of the real stars of that second round, out of Clemson, athletic wing, not a great shooter, but is so athletic that he's a quality defender and finishes around the cup, and they ended up trading him away to Houston Rockets for essentially nothing. And at some point, like, I know Adam Silver has a lot on his plate, but if you're the commissioner of this league, your product has to be better than this. Like, there's been too many years of your product being below average, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah, this Philadelphia thing, it just doesn't seem like they're getting any better anytime soon.
No, and it doesn't seem. I know that their plan has always been to be bad for a while, but it doesn't seem like they have any urgency about getting better. And we can only hope that all their picks that are young, Joel Embiid, he's been hurt, so we haven't gotten the chance to see him his rookie year. Nerlens Noel actually does look like he has some real talent. I don't know if they ended up getting the first pick now. Do they still take Okafor? Because now all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of guys that kind of play around the same position. But you got to have faith in it. I mean, apparently they have faith in Sam Hinkie, so I guess the fans in Philadelphia have to have faith with it too.
There you go. Well, let's move on to the next one. Detroit gets Reggie Jackson from the OKC Thunder. And Oklahoma City gets Ennis Carter, Steve Novak, point guard DJ Augustin, and Kyle Singler. And then Utah gets Kendrick Perkins and Grant Jarrett, and the rights to Tibor Ples and draft picks. This is a lot of bodies moving.
Yeah, it's a lot. And OKC, this was if I was ranking it, Miami's move would be first. But OKC's would be a close second. I thought they did themselves a real favor here. They picked up DJ Augustin, they picked up Steve Novak and Kyle Singler from Detroit, and those guys can all shoot the ball. They've had an ongoing issue in Oklahoma City with not being able to surround their two dynamic stars with shooters. That guy that can flat out shoot it. Serge Ibaka has developed a jump shot, but he's still not a 3-point shooter. If you can surround these guys with space, guys that can create space, it only works for them. And then you add what they did with Utah with picking up Cantor. He's a legitimate low post threat. Now, the rumor that had been floated out for a while and the proposed trade that almost went through but didn't was Brook Lopez ending up in Oklahoma City.
Whoa.
And he's a much bigger name. He's a more skilled player than Cantor. But Cantor is kind of like he's a nice consolation prize, especially once you consider Adams will be back eventually. This team, and with Mitch McCary's emergence, this team has really positioned themselves to do some good things. And as Phoenix takes a step back, I'm going to assume that Oklahoma City will take a step forward. And we've talked about it pretty much for the last couple of weeks. That is going to be a really scary AC. Like they're going to be a really, really talented team if they can come together in time to get this thing on the right track.
Kendrick Perkins, was it his time to be gone from the Thunder?
it's funny. So as a guy that's really big into the numbers and everything like that, people have been calling for Kendrick Perkins to get 0 minutes for probably like the last four years. Like basically it was that he wasn't good offensively, and defensively he wasn't able to guard multiple positions, and he was just an inefficient player, kind of past his time. And it's funny now that Oklahoma City is finally getting rid of him. This might mark the beginning of them kind of coming back, because they've suddenly gotten Oklahoma City has suddenly got a lot more offensive conscious in the low post area. I do like Perkins, and there's a good chance that he's going to get waived and then added to a contender sometime in the next week or so. But I think he has to go to the right spot for him. Oklahoma City just wasn't it.
I can see him ending up on a team like San Antonio.
That would be interesting. I don't know if he really fits what they want to do. He's not a depth passer. He's not that kind of guy. I'm more see him as a backup to a team that just needs more bodies. It's almost tough to find that perfect Spurs guy. I think there's a certain guy that works with San Antonio. I'm not sure KP is that.
Well, the reason I just mentioned that because that's what I'm saying. Not a starter, but a guy who comes on for a few minutes.
Mm.
Just gives a few blows for Duncan and whatever. And I think that he may be a good fit there. Though I know he does have potential attitude issues. Let's just leave it at that. So I don't know how coachable he would be, but Pops makes a way of just coaching people to his way, or it's the highway.
That is very true. Kendrick Perkins has absolutely never looked happy on a basketball court in his life. That is a fact. That is a statistical fact. Not 1 minute.
Okay. Next trade. Isaiah Thomas goes to Boston with Jonas Jerebko, Luigi Tatum. Phoenix gets Marcus Thornton and a 2016 draft pick, and Detroit gets Tayshaun Prince, going back to Detroit.
Oh, yeah, he's moving back to Detroit. I guess everybody wants to go back home. I don't know. That was a little surprising. Seeing Isaiah Thomas with Boston, it'd be nice if he could just be settled. I don't know how that's going to work with he and Marcus Smart. That's a weird backcourt to have, but I at least want to let him get. Isaiah Thomas can play. He's one of those guys that I feel like if you give him minutes, you give him consistency, he's going to reward you with good play. He just hasn't seemed to be able to find that niche for himself. For whatever reason, he's a small, shoot-first point guard, so maybe that's it. That can be a difficult thing for some people, but in this era of point guards that shoot a lot, I think that he fits right in. He's a little small. You have to hide him on defense, but I would like to see him get some consistent minutes somewhere. I think you'd see him flourish.
Nice. Aaron Aflalo goes to Portland with Alonzo G, and then Denver gets Thomas Robinson, Will Barton, Victor Cleaver. Any comments on that one?
Yeah, I really like Aaron Aflalo, especially when he's not necessarily going to be the guy. I think that there have been times when, like in Orlando or in Denver, he was kind of looked at because he was a two-guard and could score, that he needed to be the guy. I've never really thought that was really in his wheelhouse. But this is nice for them. Portland has always had issues with depth and getting scoring off the bench. He will definitely help that. Nicholas Batum has been up and down this year. So having another wing to pair alongside Wes Matthews and just another shooter to put on the floor with Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge, you can't go wrong there. I thought that was a really, really nice pickup for them. Just like I said, small things. That Aaron Aflalo is not going to lead SportsCenter, okay? But that's a good pickup for them. You know what I mean? Like that's a nice guy, 6'7" guy to bring off your bench and really contribute. Because we're talking about Portland. Keep in mind, we're not just talking about them, making the playoffs or something. They're trying to win a championship. They look at them. They look at the talent on that team. They look at it and say, why not us? And especially when you have two studs like Lillard and Aldridge, and they've surrounded them with quality players. They look around and they think, why can't we do this? So I'm really, really surprised and pleasantly so by what they did.
All right. Well, I guess the last transaction of, major chat, Andre Miller goes to Sacramento, and Washington gets Ramon Sessions.
Yeah, remember what I said about getting slightly better in a position where you needed to? Yeah, You can go ahead and copy and paste that because Ramon Sessions is a really, really good combo guard. I got a chance to watch him when he was with the Hornets for a really good time. He was able to play with a lot of different backcourt guys, play with Gerald Henderson, played with Kemba Walker, and was always steady, finishes around the basket really well. Andre Miller is he's an older guy, and so he slows down the pace of that team. You don't always need somebody that's going to slow that pace of that team down. You look at John Wall. You're not going to find another John Wall, but
Right.
you like to have a guy that could push the pace a little bit. Ramon Sessions can do that, and is a solid jump shooter. Like I think he got a little bit of national buzz when he was with the Lakers, and he played pretty well.
Yep.
Having him as a backup right here, he's going to pair well with either Wall or Beal in the backcourt. This was a fantastic pickup for them.
Good stuff. Were you surprised were you expecting any players to get traded that did not get traded?
I really did. I thought Dragic would go because he just had kind of forced their hand so much. I didn't think about any of these big names. I thought that Phoenix had to move. I thought that they were going to. I'm glad that they did what they did in terms of getting just clearing the slate, because it wasn't going to work. Eric Bledsoe's contract's too difficult to move, but it just wasn't going to work with the guys that they had. I'm glad to see the Rockets involved. I really like that team. If Dwight Howard can come back, and that's kind of the cross your fingers and just kind of hope and pray about it. But if he can come back, that's going to be a really, really good team. James Harden is an absolute MVP candidate. You could say he's maybe even leading the league in terms of MVP candidacies, because he's been able to keep that team afloat. First in points, fantastic on the assists. His PER is out of this world. He's done a really, really good job of just kind of keeping that team together. And so if they can just get the big guy back, that's another Western Conference team that you can see competing for a title. I'm like, there's not a shortage of teams that you look at in the West and think, yeah, maybe, and that's really, really exciting.
Any teams that you thought would make transactions that did not make transactions?
I thought maybe Golden State might try to shore up their big their big situation, because I'm still very, very concerned about Bogut. I know that they play really, really well, and that's obvious. They're had the best record, but I just, in terms of their moving forward, there's part of me that is a little afraid about relying on the guy that's always hurt around this time of the season. But there's really nothing you don't want to change in the chemistry, and that's what you're doing when you're trading assets. So I look for them, and I kind of wanted them to do something, but outside of that, anybody in the West has gotten better. I mean, because this is not just the trade. Remember that Jeff Green went to Memphis. Remember that Amari is now with Dallas. Rondo was there before him. Like, these teams have been doing this all year. They've been trying to. They know what it is. It's an arms race in the West, and so they've been kind of stockpiling for a little while.
Speaking about Amari, do you think he'll make any sort of positive contribution to the Rockets?
Yeah, to the Mavs? I think so. I absolutely think so. I really do think so, because I thought he played pretty well with the Knicks. I know he's not the same Amari. I think sometimes people get caught up in him being who he used to be. Well, he's not that anymore. His game is not nearly as high flying. He's not nearly as athletic, but he is skilled enough to be a guy who can score and give you 20 minutes a night, and a guy who can be a low post scoring threat, even if he's a little bit older. If you're only asking for a little bit of time from him, and he's got the desire. You know that the reason he wanted to be bought out of New York is because he's getting towards the tail end of his career, and he realizes he hasn't competed for a title since he left the Suns. He's hungry for this. So I think you're getting a motivated Amari Stoudemire. I think Stat will be fine.
Absolutely. So tonight starts the second half of the season. What are you looking at for the second half of the year? Who in each conference?
Selfishly, I've been hoping that the Hornets could get it together. Just being, a local guy, I wanted this team to do so much better than it has. They got bit with the injury bug. Kemba Walker, Al Jefferson have both missed significant bits of time. I feel like Sacramento is going to play better with George Karl. They've picked up a new coach. And I think that a guy like him who's known for offense, it will really help that team that can sometimes get stagnant. And then just in general, watching what happens with 7, 8, 9 with the West, I think that's going to be absolute cannibalism. And I think it's going to be basketball at its finest, especially late in the season.
You mentioned George Karl. What do you think of them hiring George Karl?
I loved it. I think that, and by all accounts, I think Cousins was on board with this, which is important. I know he can be. He is seemingly temperamental, and that's always weird because it's a relationship with the media, and if he doesn't get along well with the media, that's how you'll be portrayed. But he also could just generally be temperamental. That's kind of been the book on him since he left Kentucky. But you have talent there. There's talent there. You got Rudy Gay. You've got the pieces, and if you have an experienced coach like George Karl, guys been to the finals, that's coached multiple teams and won a ton of games. If he and Cousins can get on the same page, I think that next year the sky's the limit for that team, because I think Cousins is still the best big in the NBA.
Nice. So let's take a look at the Eastern Conference. Who are the real contenders for the Eastern Conference championship in your opinion?
I want to believe in Atlanta, I really do, but they've proven everything that they can to me in the regular season. But history tells me that you have to have a superstar on your team, at least one superstar on your team to compete for a title, and I don't believe that they have one. I love Jeff Teague. I think Al Horford is really good. I still don't think that either one of those guys, and Paul Millsap has been great this year, I don't think that any of those guys arise to that. And so that's part of the reason that I'm not considering them as maybe as high as I should be. Cleveland, look, LeBron's doing that thing where he's really, really good, and you kind of just got to watch and take note. And he's so good that he's able to change what he does. LeBron is a 25+ point scorer for several years in this league, and that's not even the thing that he does best. Watching these assist totals, watching him let Kyrie's essentially turned into that kind of the two guard of that squad, and he's doing a lot of the things that Dwayne Wade used to do, except with the jumper. And so it's fun watching how they've been playing together. If that team can get Kevin Love on a consistent basis, they don't necessarily need 30 points a game from him, but if they can get consistency on the rebounds and consistency from his shot attempts, I think they're the best team. I really, really do. Chicago, you can't talk about these and not talk about Chicago. Jimmy Butler was tailing off a little bit towards the halfway point. Derrick Rose, hope that he's healthy. He's kind of been on an upswing lately. Gasol and Noah, if they can both stay healthy, Noah's had some issues, some health issues this whole time. And I think that's really, really affecting them because defensively they're not even quite the same team. But between that and their rookie they picked up, I think that they've at least got a shot at it. And I think that they've got the requisite superstar in Derrick Rose if he stays healthy, obviously.
How important is Kevin Love to Cleveland's chances of winning an NBA championship?
They can't win one without him playing well. They can go deep into the playoffs, but they can't win. You have to be an elite team to win the NBA championship. Elite. You're not going to be elite with just what they have there, sans Kevin Love. That he gives them that extra little bit in order to be really special.
Okay. Well, I gave you the easy conference first. Now the fun begins. As you say, who are the real battlers in the NBA West Conference?
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to start this off with Golden State. They're must-watch TV. If you have an opportunity, I know they're on late for a lot of the East Coast cats. If you have the opportunity, you have to watch them play because they're fun to watch. Even if you don't necessarily like basketball, that's how much fun they are to watch. There is not a more entertaining player when he gets it going than Steph Curry. He's that kind of a star. So if you get a chance, you got to watch them. I want to pick Oklahoma. Like I really want to pick OKC. I just feel like I believe in them.
I have a love for them, man. There's something about that.
It's Russ. It's Russ. Russell. He's always angry. He's always upset. He's always going 100 miles per hour, and I love that. Like I flat out love it. Like I love that. I love he and KD's how they play off one another because KD is a little bit more chill, and Russ will get it going, and then you start to watch them just play this ballet where they're just back and forth and you get to watch something super special. And you're talking about when and KD's had his health issues, but when he's healthy, you might have two of the top 3 players in the league on that one squad. How can you not like them? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. So if I were to pick a number 2, Golden State would be my first. But if I were to pick a number 2, I'd say OKC, especially because they've done everything except lift the trophy.
Any thoughts that San Antonio can do it again?
I don't think so. We talked a lot about Miami and how going deep into the playoffs that wears on you. Well, who were they playing those last two times? They're playing the Spurs, and I think it's just too much this year. And maybe I'll be wrong because I've counted the Spurs out before, and they showed me that I was completely wrong about them. I have made mistakes multiple times before, so this might be just another occurrence of that. But I just feel like that's too much for them. I just feel like, nah, not this year. Tony Parker's not even really playing that particularly well. I just don't think that they're that same squad. And so you can now remember this when they go on and win the title. So, yeah.
There you go. Any other contenders in the West?
I really want to say the Clippers. Everything inside me wants to say the Clippers. Blake Griffin's obviously hurt, so he's got to get back healthy. But for whatever reason, I have a hard time believing in that team. And you look at
they're missing something.
They are missing something. And for the life of me, I have no idea what it is because I love DeAndre Jordan. Like I think that you're going to get a chance to see exactly how good he is without BG beside him. Because I think I think people sometimes look at his numbers and think that he doesn't contribute as much as he does. I think he's a very, very good center in this league. So you get a chance to see him. Chris Paul is going to have to, really carry that scoring load. I don't know what it is. They don't have a ton of wing help, so Matt Barnes isn't the player that he used to be. So that's a thing that you can point to. But I still don't believe in this team like I feel like I should with all the talent on it.
All right. Well, I would say predictions, but we'll wait down the road till playoff time comes down in regards to that, and we'll get your take and play this back to see if the Spurs still have a chance after a few months of wind down.
They probably will. Knowing me and knowing the Spurs, knowing our little relationship that we've been building up, they'll probably be fine.
No one pops. He has his way. Well, you know what? That's another edition of the Sports Vibe. But again, we can't leave a Sports Vibe edition without Brendan's boxing take. So go for it, man.
So Vladimir Klitschko recently inked a deal to have another fight, I think sometime in late March or April. And I was just thinking how little media coverage that it caught. Like right now, as I'm saying to you, I couldn't remember the exact date of the fight. Like that's the fact that this guy has been a heavyweight champion for as many years as he has, pretty much undisputed, with the mild exception of maybe his brother because they would never fight, but he gets no love. Like in terms of he could really be a great heavyweight. If you stick him in with the great heavyweights of all time, with the Alis, with the Foremans, with the Fraziers, with the Tysons, the Holyfield, maybe he holds his own in those years. But he'll never know because he has no competition. I literally was just wondering. I was like, I wonder how good he is. And I think he might be one of those guys that was just wrong place, wrong time.
All right. Well, Brendan, another Sports Vibe. We're rolling them out real good. If people want to touch base with you, how can they touch base?
Easiest way is on Twitter, WBHU alum. That's at WBHU alum. Or from 9 to 11 on Saturday mornings, Eastern Standard Time, you can go to thesportsshopradio.com and click listen, and you can hear me. They'll call me research on there.
All right, good stuff. Well, another edition down. We're really enjoying it, so we'll keep on doing it. Thanks for everyone who's downloading it or watching it on live during the broadcast. As always, it's Dr. Vibe here. I'm your host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show, host and co-producer of the Good Men Project Show at thegoodmenproject.com and other entities. As I always like to say, you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Bye-bye. See you soon.